the first thing I want to start off with is to give you the chance to introduce yourself in your own words, what you do, where you come from, what your company does, and who are you as a person and what made you the person you are today.
Okay, yeah, well, as you know, my name is Schwazer, and I'm a senior lecturer at the MCI, to Entrepreneur School here in Innsbruck. I'm here to teach people marketing and sales, and this in a modern way. That's why this is complete my topic. And besides that, I founded a couple of years ago my own company, which is called Salt and Peter. And in this company, I help companies to implement social selling, to help them set up marketing strategies, to help them set up content strategies. So, what made me as a person how I am now? I did a study of economics here in Innsbruck, with the clear direction and strategy to learn more about econometrics and statistics. So as you can see, I'm not the clear marketer, but my personal career after finalizing my doctor degree here in Innsbruck leads me to marketing, and I'm now in a position where I connect both worlds. That means data analytics, data science, statistics, causality, and for sure marketing topics. So I guess it's something on my side what makes a lot of fun to me, and this is where I love to be.
Wow, that sounds like a great portfolio. Thank you so much for those, Peter, for your introduction. So maybe before we dive into the key topic of today, I have one question that really itches under my nails. And the question is, what does sales enablement mean for you? How do you define it?
It's a good question. It seems like that it starts right away with the same I do in my lectures, start with definitions, and in this case, sales enablement is for me more or less a process which provides sales teams a couple of resources, and those resources, they actually need to close more deals, to produce more sales. It could be, as I mentioned, what I do in Salt and Peter. It could be content, it could be tools, it could be some sort of knowledge, or data and information. So those things are more or less, in a nutshell, what combined help people to close deals and get closer to deals.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for those insights. I mean, it's a huge range and a broad umbrella to bring various aspects under one roof, so to say. So wonderful, thanks. So in order to keep our participants on top of our focus topic today, let's dive into it and give them some valuable insights. When we look at prospecting, Peter, especially the beginning, connect and nurture, I think there are so many mistakes, pitfalls where you can trap into, and honestly, I made a lot of them. I made a lot of experience with that. So which ones come into your mind, and what are your advices to avoid those pitfalls?
Thank you for that question. And actually, in this case, I would somehow a little bit separate between the company's perspective, what can a company make wrong, and what can an individual make wrong. And when I start with the company, and I'm faced a lot of situations in this way when I went to companies to talk about social selling, it's more or less, is the company already mature to use sales enablement or use techniques like social selling or not. And in the sense of sales enablement, there are a couple of questions what you have to address to your company or to yourself as a CEO. When you can answer them properly, you're probably a company which is already on a stages on maturity, which can implement sales enablement. This could possibly be do all groups, all sales groups in my company follow more or less the same sales process with predictable outcomes, some common measurements? Or second, it could be how do you measure the sales representative's performance? Is it regularly measurement in somehow an aligned process along this buyer funnel? Is it clear communicated what's the goal of our business is? So more or less, do everybody in my company know what is the business objective? And for sure, do I offer to my employees or to my sales reps enough possibilities to train their skills, to be on the point, to know about the product? And one additional thing is this whole process only aiming for revenue and close deals, or are there a couple of stages what got measured and what got somehow took into the sales representative's account and measure his performance? Because as you know, from a buyer funnel or a sales funnel or a marketing funnel, we have a couple of steps, and in every single step, when somebody has to set some sort of action, you can measure, and you can measure the performance. And the performance is not only about revenue and closing deals in this case. Well, from individual perspective, once more, question is, am I am I major enough to use a couple of technology in this case? Can I use social media for communication? We know there are tons of ways of communication, and we have a broad range of communication in this modern world. And most of the sales representatives still rely on old techniques. They use email as the single channel and rely only on one channel. For sure, email is really a tried and trusted lead nurturing technique, and it delivers impressive results. But there's more than that, and you have to somehow break the clutter at the receiver's point. We later will see, and or probably will go a little bit more, or maybe we have time to talk about how many impressions you get a day from commercial side. And you have to
pick this topic up now if you want to. We can dive deeper there.
Sure, there's still some mistakes or some individual points, but probably we can take it into account that we talk about this later, to talk about perception of consumers and buyers in this case. Maybe to just don't rely on just one channel. There are so many chances and opportunities on websites, on social media, etc., what you can use to contact and to address people. The second thing is that most of people are too greedy to get the data or to get the deals closed. So don't shut this gate really too soon. It could be somehow annoying, or maybe consumers already know that you are just aiming for the data. You just want to make a deal. You just want to make, you want to close it, or to make a sale in this case. A third thing, and is possible that most of the salespersons and sales representatives think that it's a matter of office hours. So you just address people in office hours. Nowadays, it's if you look at some analysis of LinkedIn, on some research, they see that the sweet spot for C-level decision makers, C-level managers, is at 8 o'clock in the evening. It's not on 5 p.m., it's on 8 o'clock in the evening. Regarding content, I just want to mention that the one size fits it all set is not given in this case. If you see a long sales funnel, in every part of this sales funnel, if you use the really old concept of Elmo Smith AIDA, in every part of this concept, you need a different sort of message to address the needs of the consumer or the buyer in this case. And this is the same thing here. In the sales funnel, you need the right message in the right time and on the right channel in this case. Last thing, what I want to mention is that as an individual or a sales representative, you should be aligned with what your company is communicating and which campaigns they are running. So we should normally, there should be a system, and this is more or less an overlapping thing between the individual and the company. How can we assure that we know what everybody does in this case, which leads me to technology and possibly a good CRM system.
Yeah. Well, we see already how complex this topic is, prospecting in general. I mean, you just described 4 areas: the company per se, the individual, the timing, when should we actually put the content out there, and also, is the message which I as a person send aligned with my company message, so that we don't get contradicted here. So absolutely complex topic which needs to be aligned.
Or in the case with the sales representative which is sitting next to you or opposite of you. Just imagine if you contact one customer, one buyer today, and the guy who is sitting here tomorrow or opposite of you contacts the same buyer or consumer on the next day and try to do the same thing. If you are not maintaining your systems or make a good documentation of your process, it leads to unprofessionalism, if you want to, when we call it this way.
Absolutely, can only agree to that, Peter. Thanks so much. So if we maybe take on the next question, when we speak about the B2B sales process per se, how it changed throughout the last couple of years. I mean, there was a tremendous change. And I was reading a study, I think it was from Focus Vision just the other day, where I saw that the consumer today reads about 13 different pieces of content until they come to a final buying decision. What does this development mean for today's sales and marketing, and how is this connected to the buyer? How do you perceive that?
Well, in this case, I want to move our vision one step further in the funnel. When we managed to be one of those 13 pieces, we already did a good job. Based on some studies out of consumer behavior and perception, we now know that one single person got around 3,500 touch points with commercials or commercial messages per day. Yeah. That means when I combine this 3,500 with yours 13, it's around 0.4%, which really manages to break this clutter. And when I'm in this case mean clutter, there's some certain threshold in consumer perception, in buyer perception, and you have to be really creative to break this clutter, to go over this threshold of perception at the consumer spot. Maybe a perfect example in this case is a dog whistle. When you blow a dog whistle, you know the dog can hear it. It's targeted to this animal, and nobody else can hear it. So in our sense of communication, to get over these sensory thresholds, we have to develop our own dog whistle. So
I love this analogy. Great,
yeah.
Great, wonderful.
And this is more or less something what modern marketing and sales departments have to develop to be one of those 13 which got opened as an email, got opened, or got somehow recognized or perceived by the consumer. Back in the days, 1960s, we only had 560 such touch points a day, or possible things what we see. Now we are on 3,500, and this is pretty a lot.
Yeah, tremendous change. So you already mentioned one skill that's important, that we really tailor the message and also create awareness with the customer or potential customer that they recognize us. So if you think about it, more than 50% of consumers, when you ask them, tell us or feedback to us that, hey, you had a tailored message and it was tailor-made engagement to me. How else does this feedback from the customers apply, or what do we need to do? Which actions do we need to take in the prospecting there?
I mean, when we talk about skills, there are plenty of concepts, especially out of social selling. I'm a couple of years ago, I read the book from Melanie Dodaro, and she brought in there this so-named EAT concept, which means empathy, authenticity, and trust. And those three things combined, we have to develop those things. And I think, and I guess everybody who's actually in our room and listen to what we are saying and is a sales representative, you have to understand the customer. And I think that you totally agree that this quote, walk in the customer's shoes, is one of the major concepts as ever.
Yeah.
So empathy, to understand the customer, is some really centric things what you have to do. And the better you got knowledge over the customer, what he's doing, what he's aiming for, the better you can react on his actions and deliver to him those before named right message, right time, right channel.
Absolutely.
Well, to be authentic, I mean, this should be clear for everybody. If you play a role, nobody will develop some sort of trust in you. You should care about each other. You should somehow listen to people, and you should more or less in this case try to deliver value to the customer, not sell a product. It's all about value delivery in this case. And I guess with these three things, and build trust, with the last point, those are skills what should be developed. There are tons of other soft skills, be on time, clear communication, listening skills, be confident, etc. But in my sense, those are just subcategories of the other three ones. So they help you more or less to develop some combined areas where you make then success.
Okay, great. So being authentic, empathetic, actively listen, and walking the shoe of my customer, basically, to summarize that. So if I manage those skills and I finally made it and I connected with my prospect, how do you see the next step of nurturing? How does that work, and what insights can you give us on that aspect?
Yep. From data-driven point of view, and from a marketing point of view, we always talk about market segments, and we know that market segments really respond differently. And in this case, we a clear do is that we have to test some approaches test, track if it works, and then re-evaluate these approaches. First of all, we have to collect a lot of data to see if it's somehow statistically significant, and then we can roll it out to a larger group of customers in our database. So we are in this case really already in a technical perspective, what we can do in sense of a CRM system. And leads me once more to what I mentioned already before. The CRM system should be up to date every day. So it should track when you communicate over which channel and which message, based on a really customer-centric approach. And this is for growing companies or bigger companies, or as well for startups, is this the key to success? I have talked to a lot of startups here at MCI, or startup ideas, and we were talking about CRM systems, and they actually had no clue. But after I told them that you have to set up at the beginning a CRM system, that you know what you did with your customer, what you talk with your customer to maintain your customer or the sales process, it makes sense to them, and they start searching for a solution in this case. When we talk about a little bit larger companies, I guess it should be a clear or a thing what you should have on your list is you have to develop some sort of lead criteria. Yeah. How do you distinguish between a qualified lead or an unqualified lead? Especially this tension field between sales and marketing departments could lead into failure. And as we know, and as everybody know, those both departments are odd with each other. So they are not often on the same page. So some sort of lead scoring in this case could help to distinguish between a qualified or an unqualified lead. Clear don'ts. Don't deliver endless messages to your leads. And they quickly become annoyed of your company, get a bad impression, and if they are gone, they are gone. Additionally, if you send messages, they should not be ambitious. They should be clear, focused, should clearly craft out a message of additional value to the customer, to see that you are a caring company, that you care for them, etc. So I guess if you do a little bit of research on the internet, you find tons of do's and don'ts, and it's really tough to break it down, and it's so individual for every company that you have to see it as some sort of use case, or each company as single entity in this case.
Great. Well, Peter, just looking at the watch, time is flying. We are almost at the end of our time together. I can't believe it, Peter. But before I open the floor for the questions from our participants, which are coming in constantly right now, one last question, or maybe second last question before we open it up. I think also our participants are interested to hear, you mentioned some books before already. Are there any other books, podcasts, or major events which have been turning points for you, what you want participants to be aware of, and you think they are highly influential also in your years?
Actually, there are tons of literature facing me every day, starting from bachelor and master thesis on certain topics. But a couple of books really changed my mind. And based on my background, I played American football. I have been general manager of a football club here in Austria. I'm really tied into sports, and I started reading the book Moneyball from Michael Lewis, and I guess everybody knows the movie probably with Brad Pitt about the baseball story and how they changed this subjective system of scouting of baseball players into a measurement performance system, and fitting those positions into on the baseball field. And this thing is nothing different in companies. You try to measure the performance of your employees and push them in the position or develop them into a different position in your company to get the best out of it, to win the game. And this book really changed somehow my mind, and was a good start. There are other books, The Captain Class and War Room, regarding sports, which have more or less some leadership approach, some as well quantitative approach, how you should grade players in this case. Now today, actually, I'm following Gary Vaynerchuk on LinkedIn. I love what he's doing. He's a New York Times best-selling author. Neil Patel, former Google employee. I love to hear to his podcasts. Magazine-wise, and it's those are two German-speaking magazines. I use Business Punk magazine to open up my mind, to see different business models, and to keep me somehow in marketing technique up to date. I use T3N magazine.
Yeah.
I like it to read it. I think it's, so you see, I more or less cover everything, books, online, whatever.
Great, super. So your spare time is basically booked with reading, listening, and getting things up to date from.
Well, still watching sports is, and for sure I have a family, but watching sports, especially American sports, is on the top of my list.
Super cool. Well, maybe one question from our participants, which came in, is there a specific prospecting strategy for LinkedIn? Should we connect with everyone or select them? What's your take on that, Peter?
I would be selective on who you're taking, but it should fit in your portfolio. So it you probably do not know the other part, what you are connecting to, but actually if he is somehow in the range of your strategy, put him into your network. It could possibly be that you are not closing a deal immediately, but it could be that in future, based on content where you position yourself as a personal brand, show competence, show that you are a big brand, could help you, that this guy sees you and recognize, okay, this is in my LinkedIn account, one of my contacts. I approach him because I think he can help me to solve this problem. So LinkedIn is real, and Xing, I have to mention Xing as well for the DACH area, is a network. It's a network which helps us to solve business problems by finding people and persons. So it's more or less person search. Google is problem search, or emotion search, or however you want to call it. And LinkedIn is clear searching for the right persons.
Okay, cool. The second question, maybe, what is a no-go when monitoring employees? Is this not too much controlling and too less freedom? Another question.
This is a really good one. Actually, it depends on the company culture. And if you monitor your employees, the lead of the department also got monitored and his decisions. So you set up more or less, in my sense, a full system of transparency in the company. And it opens up multiple things of freedom for employees and for the company, because you only got measured by performance. Not anymore. The main measurement is not the timestamp or the temperature of your chair in the office. The measurement is how you perform. And nobody cares anymore about where you perform and how you perform. And I guess this is more or less the core thing why you are in a company. You for sure you have to change working contracts. You have to set in some sort of gradings. And when we think about monitoring people and controlling people, everybody in his mind think that it's about hard facts, about sales, revenue, and all those things. That's not true. There's additional parts, and if you look on the grading, on a personal and HR gradings, like the Hay grading, etc., there are soft skills also mentioned in there. How do you grow as a person inside the company? Did you develop new skills? And if you combine hard facts and soft facts and define goals where you should develop, I guess it's a fair system for everybody. But it should be clearly communicated and transparent for everybody there.
Yeah, transparency will definitely be key here.
Yeah.
Super, Peter. Thank you so much. So if our participants want to reach out to you or connect with you, what's the best way to connect? How do you want to be reached?
You can Google me. You find my email address here at MCI, but for sure on LinkedIn. So I have a profile on LinkedIn. Just contact me there, send me invitations, messages. If you have any questions after this expert interview, just let me know. I try to do my best to help you and to solve your problems.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for your time today. We are already out of the time. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I wish you all the best for your future career, dear participants. And Britta, thank you for the chance to be here.
Thank you, Peter. And thanks to all of you. I hope you also enjoyed the conversation as much as I did with Peter. I'm already looking forward to my next talk next week, where I'm honored to welcome Hugh McFarlane, the founder of Align Me, and we will speak about the next step in our process. We will tackle, evaluate, and qualify. And along the way, we will discover the secret behind rhythmic marketing and the concept of shaping your prospects. So stay tuned and join us again next Thursday. Thanks to you. Bye.